glimpses of archives with general subject matters listed on the sheet. These are shots, these must be 2000 of very violent Vince's pump 24/7 on the Grand Canal West Bank. Up here, these four, where are we, are shots of the 410 so-called swim pool, cesspool, and the pump that's 24/7 at 410 Sherman Canal. Up here we just have a bunch of shots from late 2001 on the Grand Canal south of Washington, and of course this shows open areas where people have not fallen in for decades, and there are not the barricade plants. On the earlier video just shot the last couple of days, I turned around from Vince's and showed an overhang of vegetation. The Fortress people there on the right side of this photo of the vegetation have privatized the entire public access walk there as theirs, and it floods quite constantly with the constant yuppie sprinklers. These three shots are just shots of the teardown of the back cottage of 414 Carroll Canal, and the remaining shot of the one that was left next to 412, which is the little blue one. Over here we have the Sherman Canal, a sign that still exists, and a notice of intent that happened. These were late 2000, I believe. Yes, they were. And the no trespassing yellow sign on Sherman, as well as a few others, and all the new yuppie signs by the city and the VCA tell that you go at your own risk. The city takes no responsibility. Here we have, of course, after a VCA city so-called state, whatever you want to call it, cleanup day, and we have the privatized color choices of the powers that be versus the original colors, which were an off-white of the canal bridges. Oh God. Over here, these are just shots that are hard to see, I suppose, tremendously, of construction at Dell and Howland Canal, the southeast corner of. These, with the cord, are some shots of more regular electrical motorboats of some people. Some people have outboard, internal combustion motors. We have the constant cords on the bridges that are kept under the bridges, and this one with a cord crossing it that I'm shooting with. It shows some cords and some construction on the Sherman Canal Bridge. It doesn't show the cords well, of course. Here we have one of the many dead ducks, and I did take a picture of this one. Was this the one I actually put in a box as a gift one day for their so-called Venice Canal Parade? Something which I started in 1981 and ran to the extreme violence of all concerned. And I polled anywhere from 35 to 50 people to and fro, let people off, let people on, did it for 4 or 5 hours. I procured the barge, I made or got the poles each year, and I did it because I was asked to do it and they knew that I could do it. These are simply shots of the putting in of the sewers, the 12 new sewers, in 2002. These are shots around Dell And then there are some shots, on a couple of side streets down here. I think this is probably the one at Howland or Lenny. They blocked it so that things wouldn't go in, but then of course they unblocked that. Just here you can see, of course, the grading, and things go straight down the gratings in the graded cement streets, so that things go directly into the canals. This shot here shows two of the older sewers which were kept, of which many are kept in the canals. This just has to do with the extreme violence of these few shots of people that live at a certain house, especially the fellow, but it takes two. And their insanities and drug addictions and taking over everybody's property around them. Some of the cleanup that I did in the constant salvaging, saving, and fixing of the legacy of Mary Lou's sanctuary house at 450 Howland Canal, where friends now live. These next four pictures are of the wonderful other non-permanent, the first, so to speak, non-permanent, what do you call it, docks of the fortressings of the people. These were mostly at Eastern Canal. This one is in the corner also of Carroll Canal. Here we have a bevy of pictures. These are from probably 97, 98 of our wonderful things that I've been showing in the footage that I could get on this tape a little bit prior, of the poor workers who are very good people who have to do what the powers that be tell them to do, which include all the pollutions of motorboats, chainsaws, raking and killing and making sure that all wildlife does not nest here or breed here, and that they kill the salt grasses and the pickleweeds. These next, in this section, are of the end of the Grand Canal. The Grand Canal goes under what is now the turnabout road of the Venice Peninsula. It is not the Marina Peninsula. In the middle here we have some shots of what's considered the lagoon area. This bottom shot shows at the top of the photo the Venice pumping plant, which is at, so to speak, Hurricane and the Esplanade, or the west bank of the Grand Canal. You will see up here, this shot down here is from Washington Street, facing the city clubs with the so-called bird sanctuary, which is a joke, but it's there. This shot is just south of David's and Judy's, the west bank of the Grand Canal, so it must be 2916, something around there. Here we have on the Grand Canal South some of these wonderful fortresses that were built, and the sidewalks and their walls, of course, get done in by the, what do you call it, the tides. However, there are 8 homes that are, I think there are 8, could be 7, that are in this area north of that, or include this area actually, where people can't pass. They've built completely out to the sidewalk. You can't, where there would be a sidewalk, there is no sidewalk possibility, and they refuse, and the city and the states and all those don't care. These are pictures of Normandy invasions of mostly Baywatch kinds of things at the North Channel. Oh, this is probably 97, 98. These 2 shots here, one of which the cord goes over, I think, or almost over, the crane, and then these big things, are part of the restoration of the Venice Beach, so to speak, area, and since this is all Venice and Venice Beach, and the Venice Pier, which had been injured, not well built, two, injured in the 83 January and March storms. Here we have 3 shots, which, of course, my life was extremely threatened, of dog people that are very common, and they're just a portion of them at the Oceanfront Walk at about 26th Street. These are shots of a very common woman and multiple dogs, which is not unusual. And this is a shot at the baby beach, the mother's beach, with a golfer, of course, which is not that uncommon. This is just more North Channel. And then this is the original poster of the first, properly, so to speak, since I had done things, I guess, prior to this, which is why they asked me, of the first holiday boat parade for the canals. And this was 1981. So next to it, and I have binders of lots of these things and archives, is the first Canal Festival flyer from September of 1969. And that's it for now. Binders and archives include all kinds of things. This Heritage of Resistance is from a show, which I also produced a great deal, and the pictures, actually, of course, of the main picture there is of one of the canal festivals, and I organized and produced basically the main and first many years of the canal festivals to total whatever it was. They include all kinds of other things here, including this booklet put together by the students of and under the supervision of Arnold Springer, his professor of history at Long Beach. All kinds of old things. Here are posters from My Against All Odds and Costing Great Fortunes, and against the hate of the city of Los Angeles, for 2 exhibits of major photographers, especially this latter one with Charles Britton, Rod Bradley, Anthony Friedkin, and Frank Talbot. Canal Festival posters, and this poster, of course, here's a photo, and this poster was made from that photo. And of course, old beachheads, and an entire collection have been given to a certain library, etc. Back to the little shootings. Here is the Argonaut, the latest Argonaut, which shows some pictures from last year or so of the huge marina boat parade, which, as you can imagine by the size of these yachts and boats and barges and so forth, it's an enormously, hugely commercial event. And the marina, of course, was cut out of the wetlands, of which the canals are considered to be still part of, but are treated in total rape. Nothing surprising there. The marina, of course, doesn't even pretend to be such. This is actually an old photo, which I had an extra one of, from Daryl Golden, one of the greatest artists I ever knew, and who took this picture of illusion, of course, in 1983. He took many pictures of me over the years when he was alive. Here are some little Xeroxes of when Emily and I redid the Jaya mural, which is actually we call the Canal mural, here at Dell and South Venice Boulevard. This one has little Xeroxes of photos that also show us with our children, kind of in the middle picture, and at the bottom picture it shows 2 documentarians, Rod Bradley and Joan. Joan doesn't live here anymore. This just shows the writings of the general history that Emily and I came up with. It was an 18-month project for me. Needless to say, at least 18 months. These are 2 surfing photos, canal surfing photos, that are more recent, taken by friends here. These are shots from the many, many, many photos that were taken by the many photographers. both, well, this only shows at one end of the memorials that I happened to produce, not that I wanted to, it just happened to fall to me, for Mary Lou's memorial. The first part of the memorial was held at our Pacific Resident Theater. I'm holding the Spirit of Venice Award in the left lower corner photograph on the canals, which was taken on another day, September 10th, the day of the award. These papers show the silliness of the multiple paperworks that come from the Venice Canal Association and their so-called boat parade, as they consider it theirs, of course, because everything is privatized, pollutionized, and profiteerized. And here we have another flyer from the newly formed and this year highly reactionary group called the VOC instead of the VCA. The VAC is the Venice Action Community. And these organizations have made people like the council people write letters of threats of anybody damaging the canal plants, because of course they, in these kinds of threats, promote that this is a violation and all kinds of crimes, and you can be sued forever if you hurt one of these salt bush plants, because these are wetlands. So they use it entirely for their own benefit as they need to. Here are, let's see if I can get in here a little bit. I can't even, oh, here are 3 of the 7 documentaries that I made on Venice. And these are just slide boxes showing slides that I have of the exhibitions that I've done of major photographers. These are other little photographs. These are the color ones are by Frank Talbot of surfing, canal surfing. The black and white one is by Susan Nicoletti. There's a photo of me with Rick before he died, and of course we had a lifetime together as community people. Here's wonderful Emily in her small but completely cleaned up studio. I think this was this year, actually, earlier this year. Here's another dead duck, dead from the vehicles and dead from the dogs and dead from the pollutions, but most of them, when they're hit like this with the blood, are dead from the vehicles. And here's John and Barbara. John and Barbara are really probably the most accomplished actual artists that I know in the canal area. And here's the little snowman. Of course, John has to build everything that Barbara designs, basically, but she's a great artist. Together they are great graphic artists, computer artists. Here are a couple more cards. This is Float, the fire engine float in 2001, done by Dickie and Tim and friends. Here's another shot. This is on Eastern Canal looking north from Sherman. Oh, here. This is the famous, so to speak, in certain circles, poster that I put together with photos by Rick Sinatra, who has been dead a couple of years now, who was a wonderful, wonderful photographer and the inventor of the metaphaser and other such things. This poster was done in 1976. This is just a holiday card that I did, which is with the black and white photos of Frank in 1996. This is a recent 3 photos on Xeroxings that I did of the Sacred Music Day at the Ocean Park, Venice Beach border last year, September. This book is going to be difficult to show. This is my favorite book, but our old house, this is 1972 probably, because the book was done in 73. I'm going to try to change the pages if I can. There were many good things in here, but this is, the top of these 3 photographs here is also our back door area. It shows, this is an example, of course, of people who never contact you, who quote you, misquote you, who change your writings of writings that you do, who edit whatever they like, say as they please, put things and publish as they please. However, this is still the best general book on modern Venice in the 70s that I know of. The mural, it was 1974 and 1975. Here's a copy of the first flyer for the 8th of November for the dedication in 1975. This shows a newspaper article from the 2 times it was painted over by the powers that be and their thugs, and the community tried to save it by scrubbing it off with first water and then turpentines, and it lasted in very dilapidated condition until we redid it in 1996 to 97, 22 years later. This is the very first festival I ever did in Venice. It, of course, totally poor, but this is the only flyer I have of it. It was at the Venice Pavilion, throughout all the centers of the pavilion, and it was called the Festival of Venice, and that's it. Here's a drawing of Room to Move. These are all reduced drawings from originals. These are hopefully will go now, since I have about 100 of them in a book, along with about 15 photos that should go of things that are too important that I never drew. Here we are at the Fox Venice. The San Francisco Mime Troupe was there at different times. Of course, our Pacific Resident Theater, of which we have 3 spaces at 703, 705 and a half, 707 Venice Boulevard. 705 is Wanda Smith's gallery. She and Laura, who are like sisters, are just fabulous. And she's very important here. They both are very important in the history of Venice. I'm hoping I can use this to shoot some of Howard's, Legacy Howard's, at 447 and 3 lots on the Sherman Canal near Eastern. This was our first house on Carroll Canal, so to speak, ours, not the landlords, of course, the slumlords. And here's a drawing of Palms Court. This is the drawing of the Ash Grove when it was reborn. It was on Melrose for so long. It's such an extremely important part of American music venues. Here's a drawing of Mary Lou's house, 450 Howland Canal, way before Rip Davidson redid it for Mary Lou. Here's John's and Barbara's on Howland Canal also. These are just quick smatterings of some watercolors in Venice Canal area that I've attempted. Slides exist. I don't have any oils here to show, and I can't show the slides. These 3 papers are about Wishing Well, the radio program that I produced, and here's the list of the interviews I did throughout California, 94 to 96, although they were mostly 94, 95. This is a paper that went with and has a paragraph on things I've done in the community. A paragraph that went with the latest, the 2000 exhibition I did of Venice photographers, and the 6 major events that went with it. These were other papers that went with them that nobody's ever paid attention to for the years that they are. Venice Canal's Best Pocket Parks petition, with a history, of course, of the park that those of us who did parks here for so long is there. Here are 2 of the letters that regard, although there were probably 4, I think. I know there were 3 major ones in 2000, about the crimes of and sins, if you want to say, of the Venice Historical Society, which I'd helped to found in 1986, but which has been extremely corrupted by the current heads of it as their private career things, and the destruction of artifacts, the copyright crimes, and so forth and so on. At any rate, here are 5 of the little books. I think I've done, I know I've done 6, I think I've done 7 little books of poetry that are actually quite packed. And here's little photographs of Robert with his work truck. He's been here for since 69 for sure. It's in the canals. These are just little theater photos here. And then, of course, there are photos up there of me and Linda. with a canal party bash for the Halloween, which she loves to have, and then at some dinner. There we are. From the Heritage of Resistance show, exhibit, and events that went on for months in the spring into summer of 1981. It was held at Spark, but this photo is from the canal festivals that I certainly slaved on, with 3 stages and things. I got every lot and every permission for everything. A, B, C, health, food, licenses, all kinds of things, and every permission for every spot of inch that we could do it on. I was taken to jail, but I was also threatened with jail a lot, and physical violence constantly, which I still am. Here are some original Peace and Freedom bumper stickers. Here's a 6th annual flyer for the canal festivals. Here's the 3rd annual for the such, etc., etc. And here, although I'm going to come back to some of this, but here's a special issue of the Beachhead for Christmas, 1968. It was the 2nd issue, actually, of the Beachhead. The first being about the 1st or 2nd of December, or the 8th, I can't remember. Here is a Beachhead, of course, in August, for the September 2nd annual Venice Canal Festival. The originals are donated and already given away, but these are copies I made. Here we have, which I hope I could show at all, some of the wonderful deep yacht canals where there would actually be no walking. And all the plans changed from these, which are about 66, 68, 69. These were to have 4 high-rises on each lot to be allowed. These are just 3 shots of 3 of the Tom Sewell and Webster cohorts who made tremendous amounts of, what do you call it, real estate money here. Main Street productions, publications. This is an old 1969 booklet, and here we have an old Stop the Canal Project with a Ron Cobb illustration next to it that he had supported such issues, and he made some cartoons and we used them in the Beachhead. This was the first theater that I co-founded with G. Ray Hawkins, actually, in 1968, after we were with the committee. But there were many more theaters founded. Here's a copy of, because the original is given away, from the Cheetah for the Vanilla Fudge, one of many groups that were showing still at the POP at the Cheetah. This is from the Free Venice Theater that I actually started and slaved for years, and then other people kind of took it over, which was supposed to happen because I was just supposed to get it going, and I was doing theater in town, and that was at the Venice Pavilion. I produced many things at the Venice Pavilion. Here, if you can see the Free Venice switchboard at our community house, we had all kinds of things that people could be helped with, and here's this is from one of the programs from the Major Barber or the Adding Machine. I don't have all the programs from the few productions that were done under that Free Venice Theater ado. Here's an old committee workshop flyer and an old company theater flyer. And in that picture we have Ad Levy, Dennis Redfield, and Gar Campbell among the 5 guys. But this over here was a very important show, Target LA, for Anti-Nuclear Music and Arts Festival. It was a huge thing. We also did it, I think, in 1984. Yes, at the Rose Bowl. Is that right? Yes. It was quite huge. And a lot of this was also produced here in Venice. All the rehearsals were here in Venice. And we also did certain things, including Osa's show, which was quite wonderful at the Venice Pavilion, called Anti-Nuke. I also just want to state that the 1983 declaration of the canals as a cultural historical monument took several years. That was the third effort, but it took several years, and Tom Moran led that, and I helped him. It was declared on the 15th of July 1983 that the canals by the city were just considered such. In 1982, in the fall, it was considered such by the federal and state government. My illnesses. These are just a few of the remaining Rolling Stones that I saved from the era. There were many magazines, and at one time I photographed covers of magazines my son held up because I couldn't keep the magazines to represent things of his and the girls' times, actually, even more than mine, I think. This is, oh god, this one's a 1984 beachhead, right here-ish, but here we are with the first beachhead, and here we are with one in 72. Here we are with one in 1975, and that's my son there actually at the top, who spoke at meetings and at the time. And there's the mural, actually, mural completed. Here's the 100th issue, and then here we have, that's 78, and this is of course 79. We have an issue here, and I think, yes, this is 83, a beachhead, another beachhead, 83. I had 108, I think, of the completes, of as much complete set as anybody, so to speak. When Rick first gave his collection at one time to the Venice Library, before Lucille was our librarian, although we don't actually have a library, we just have an ugly building that's very noisy and unsafe, physically unsafe. And then this is 1981, I think. At any rate, his entire collection of the beachheads, which were given about 1983, were suddenly, very quickly, just missing, gone. So we can't give things to the City of Los Angeles, and we can't give them to the Venice Historical Society, and I'm not quite sure where they should be put. They need to be local, and they need to be accessible. 1984, 1985, a whole bunch here of 1988, and then these are also 1988 for what is now Playa Vista. Of course, people don't believe that there were 7 corporate names to that, which is probably all the same money. And in fact, here we go again. And then this is also 1988. And that used to be the tunnel that went under the island of Venice Boulevard and North and South Venice Boulevard. And here we are with the 20th anniversary 1988 December issue. I also produced 5 major events for 1988 20th anniversary of the beachhead, and in fact here is this little highly Xerox upon Xerox upon Xerox of some of the events that I did, which included and include still 2 documentaries on the Venice beachhead and collectives, and several poetry nights, and a big night at the Sidewalk Cafe with Carol von Diller, of course, and Downey Peck for music, and Paul Krasner for his humor. Carol was the star in my opinion, as she always is, actually. Here we have 1987 issues when Pat Russell was up for not necessarily being re-elected. I do not know that the person who succeeded her as an elected person was any better whatsoever. This is from the 100th issue, John Haig's kind of conglomerate summary of Peace and Freedom Party, which we founded in 1967 in the summer, with his leadership. These are all, here's a 1969, 1989 issue of the Beachhead, and of course it includes what's now Playa Vista. This is the 15-year publication little announcement for the Beachhead. I was elected to the first Venice Town Council, for what that was worth, in 1973, and this was the first dinner, but hold your horses. I designed many flyers, and this is just one, and this one is for the 18th of September 1973. This is just another one of the town councils, but this one I saved from 1988. Okie dokie. It's from the Free Press, 1967, and of course there's a Ron Cobb cartoon. It must be great to be a cartoonist. This list, which has many pages, 4 or 5 pages, is from our 1968 Venice Food Co-op. This is the staples list. This is the Venice Dairy Cell list with directions of how to run it, etc. In the background, I just have a couple of, I think 1972 flyers that were from green paper. I want to come down to these because these seem stupid, of course, like all of this, but these are the drawings of the lots of the canals. I had the original set of these, along with many reports and many specific plans and many designs and yada yada. At any rate, these are important for people to know about. Here are some notes from the 1988. We're dealing with housing now and the homeless, of which I've been for decades. Notes from a meeting at Arlene's. Notes in 87. All of these notes, those were part of the notes that led from neighbor to neighbor. Yeah. And this is a list of neighbor to neighbor peoples and so forth and so on, which of course Steve Clare was a big part of, but all of us worked on. Here are some when are these? These are early. These might be 1986 to 1998, the Venice Renter, out of the Tenant Action Center. Here's Emily's logo for Venice Neighbor to Neighbor for one of the marches, and that's probably 87. Yes. Here are the very first papers of the mission and statements of the Venice Community Housing Corporation, which now is an enormous organization and has conserved and preserved housing and has built new housing, which includes the first of the new housing, which is at, oh God, what's the exact address? It's in the 300 block. It takes up half the block of 4th Street. These are costs of living for one person in Santa Monica, about 1986-87. This has more to do with housing, and this has to do with more recent things. We fought, some of us did, a handful of us, a freeway coming into and through Venice and into and through Ocean Park, but it's on the books still, and there we go. I've written notes about this continually, and including even in the last weeks, and given them to people. The Bologna, or Bayona, depending on where you come from, lagoon restoration led by Eileen Weiss, who had a great vision, and it wasn't followed at all, and it's not been done actually properly, but there we are. And in fact, it includes all kinds of other dredgings and huge projects that shouldn't be. And here we have even, in our local paper, something that says that storm drains pollute the bay. But nobody pays any attention to the storm drains that go into the canal systems north or south of Washington at all. An old 1905 to 1910 street lamp cover. It's the cover housing, the globe. This is a 1951 City of Los Angeles sidewalk and filling in of canals situations. It was taken from the Grand Canal during many of their trashings and drawings up of the canals. And of course filling in, at least 12 or 13 miles of the canals. Here are some of the bottles that I saved myself from the canals, dug up when the canals were completely dried up again in 92, 93, 94, into 95 until they let the water back in for the so-called restoration of the Loffelstein that even young ducklings can't get up, because that's the purpose, of course. At any rate, 35 of these were destroyed at the neck completely by the Venice Historical Society powers that be. I had given them a box among many artifacts of such. After I cleaned and soaked all these, some of them are quite valuable, probably, and some aren't, but some are of great fun. And these here in the center are probably pretty old. The champagne bottle is not that old, but it's pretty unique. We don't see them too often with a leaded bottom anymore. These, of course, are old soda bottles, Royal Crown, then several Pepsis, I think it's a Hires here, and then a number of Cokes in different years, different arrangements, different changing of the logos a bit. A Canada Dries, some 7-Ups, a Crush, etc. And that's it. Oh, and I kept in the cup from the Baja Cantina because it is such a gold mine of a business here, and they should be noted for huge traffic jams, tremendous drunken brawls, and all kinds of drugs and cigarettes, etc. But it is beautifully run. Absolutely a great running by Patrick, who owns that, and his team. I will say that, hands down. Many were saved. This I'm going to try to flip. Esto Perpetua. This is from the Downwind Linney Canal Regatta, or that was held by Alan and his Sea-Tech kind of group for a few years here and there. It was quite wonderful. Of course, they are professional sailors. And this is the back of the shirt. This shirt, I think, is from 70 to 71 or 2. I'm sure it's designed by Emily and was for one of the canal festivals. And, of course, to have actual canals, not to have a deep yacht harbor here. Road skates, the 1979. Yes, the huge skating ados, and which David was a part. There's a Friends of Venice Library T-shirt. Evidently that's what they spend their money on, because we don't have a library, and it is not our librarian's fault. But it is the city of Los Angeles' fault. I worked 20 years on a good design for the new library. It took 30 years to get the new library, and the last 10 years were just ridiculous, and we got worse than ridiculous as a building. This was a 1986 shirt. Here is shirt one of many of Russell Clark Productions. This is 1984. Probably the greatest dance teacher, dancer, choreographer overall, being able to teach at the same time that I knew, and part of the Room to Move, and taught at Room to Move, and taught many different places. Room to Move is in Venice, at the old Venice post office. I think it's 312 Venice Way. It was there for a few years, about 75 to 82. Pacific Resident Theater. That's an exhibit that I helped with at the G. Ray Hawkins Gallery, but I worked off and on there for years. One of the restaurants I worked at, so to speak. This was a shirt actually made by Quan Chang-yen, and it is what it is. It's an old shirt. This is an old shirt, and Martine and I made this shirt. Martine Dimanche. This has to be, though, probably I don't know what year. 74? It's hard to know. brought them a shirt from my son's gymnastics business that he had for a time, a Venice beach shirt, and of course as a swimmer I gave a bunch of these to the kids and the grandkids at one time. And I actually renewed my lifeguarding, and I did it actually this year, 2003, at the Venice pool. I'm only a lifeguard for pools. I couldn't be a lifeguard for the beach. It's much too dangerous with all my injuries. Venice Beach House, of course, for what that's worth, and then the Brown Bagger restaurant, where I worked in 83, 84. And there will be more shirts to come. A Packard design, and it was donated for the Venice Historical Society before that turned into things it probably shouldn't have. At any rate, Ray Packard did lots of watercolors here, and oils also. Here we have signed in 79, and over here in 74, but the two versions that I have of The Last Resort by Gil Borges, who died a few years ago here in Venice, and he put out these shirts and a few posters of this when he was living. This is, of course, for the gated community in Deepwater Adieu. This was one of their T-shirts, as far as I recall. Here is the back of a tank shirt of the 20th anniversary of the Beachhead T-shirts, and here is the front of another one. Both of them have both logos, rear and front. It was, I will say, yes, my clarification that to have a T-shirt that this should be the design, and it was the design for the 20th anniversary in 1988 of the Free Venice Beachhead newspaper. This is a folded up but big T-shirt. On the back with similar designs it says "Moi je danse," which of course is so appropriate for Russell Clark and all around for the jazz dance. This is a shirt that is very a little minor thing, but it doesn't exist this way anymore per se. It's an enormous business. Max and Jeannie's way up in the canyon, right where the old Topanga meets the new Topanga Canyon Road, which people think is the old Topanga Canyon Road. At any rate, it's an important legacy here for decades. Been running, of course. Okay, simple things. The Santa Monica Symphony, which is very important. It gives free symphonies, which I went to for quite some years, an extreme luxury. Here's Die Fledermaus, Faust, and The Crucible, all of which Sue Ann Pinner was kind enough to allow me, as the last person chosen each time, to be in the chorus of, mainly because I could cut the orchestra, which is very important. The Powerhouse, which I worked with, and also had a part in this in this original play, becoming Walt Whitman at the Powerhouse in '93. But that company dissolved in '94, and I'm now with Pacific Resident Theatre. Here we have the 10th anniversary of shirt that Emily designed, of course, for Venice Community Housing Corporation. That was 1998. Here we have the 10th anniversary of the Jazz at Palms Court benefit that she slaves on and did the shirt for, of course, as well, which was an idea and Chuck works on tremendously. Chuck Bloomquist, who's also worked with the Beachhead as Emily and Peace and Freedom and Free Venice. But the most important shirt here, in my opinion, in some ways, is this of Sam Taylor, the legendary soul man. Rock your ass off. And he would, and he did, and he still does with his 3 quadruple bypasses, and he's had to move to the East Coast for his health. It was extraordinary. He played here for years, and occasionally he makes it back to town. Another place where I tried to waitress for a few weeks. Now we're getting to other shirts like Tibet. I'm going to skip for a second and go over here because San Francisco and Chinatown and North Beach are so extremely important in my life from the beginning of life. And here's a Soviet Union T-shirt, right as the Soviet Union was breaking up. Here we have, of course, the Names Project, and with all the friends of family, family of friends, the best people that I've seen pass through this world and help tremendously, I guess, myself. I've made one quilt that's in there. I did that in 1988. And then this is the t-shirt that I brought back from my trip, although I brought many things, from Guatemala and El Salvador in 1961. This was the t-shirt from my then young brother, my baby brother, we used to call him. That's it for the t-shirts that I'm going to shoot, I think. So just to document a few wonderful fabrics that will be gone soon. This is, of course, the sari silk. We'll go to Erin, our 40th birthday. Here are 3 old dresses from the 60s. I can't get back far enough, the sun will hit. They look quite great, but they're going to be given away for the theater. 1906 velveteen brown suit. David wore. Over here we have an old naval shirt. I've got the collars stuck up so you can see some of the stripes and the star. This is the apron that Aunt of the Rain made me sight unseen. She made everything for everybody all the time. This is an old dress. This dress and this apron were and have been my Alice in Wonderland costume when I did that when I was younger. This psychedelic smock, culotte actually, she made sight unseen for Christmas for me, I think 1968, and it fit perfectly. This is the 1860 Chinese silk jacket that I sewed to make into a dress. It's actually reversible. Here's the approximately the same age of the Chinese silk robe. Here's an old jacket. This is probably from the 40s, as far as I can tell. This is an old gown that has black pants under it that don't show right now, of course, because the way I can't hang things properly. And oh boy, this is probably from the 20s. Here is my favorite silver coat that Patrick brought back. I think it was Christmas 1969 from China. This is my redo makeup dress that I made in, oh gosh, when 86 or 88 with Daryl, after the original Georgette silks disintegrated from so much dancing, and that was an old dress then. When I got it, it was probably from the 20s. And the top smock are from El Salvador when I went in 1961 after being in Guatemala for 3 weeks. It's when we first sent a moon shot, actually, when I was down in Central America. This is a Korean jacket, and it's double-sided. It's from the Korean War. I've pinned up the sleeve so you can see that there's embroidery on the front lapels also. And this is about a 1971, 72 Chinese little jacket. And here's a Mao jacket from the same year from San Francisco. These are just quick shots. Actually, the tea-dyed silk, the lighter one, and the other is a red velvet with gold. The former is inside out, so that the button of the eucalyptus will hang. Those were the wedding gowns for 1972. That dress was acquired at one of the Venice thrift shops, but later, not in the 60s. Joan Del Monte's flea market shop. This scarf was not on this coat, acquired together with the coat, but this is a black velvet coat, silk, with an ermine collar. It's quite wonderful. It's very tight in the shoulders. I have 2 big shoulders. I bought that there, probably 69 or 70 for the coat. This slip and this dress from a shop that was close to Joan's on West Washington, now called Abbot Kinney Boulevard, called Ephemera. The man who made that a big business has a couple of very expensive shops on Main Street near Hill and Ocean Park. But this dress I acquired at Jones probably in '68. It's really quite extraordinary. It's linen, and all these things have served as great costumes for different pieces. 1972, from the wedding up at the Mermaid Tavern in Topanga, the 3-day wedding that I did in 1972. October 22nd was the Dawn actual wedding. And I made many things like this thereafter. And lots of canopies. I'll try to shoot the last canopy that I have left. Well, this is hardly representative. I made very complex quilts and actually much more complex canopies. This was just a room divider. This one got burned by somebody who left a candle burning, of course, etc., etc. But the story of the most famous canopy, so to speak, is the one I made in '71 for the Ash Grove on Melrose for Ed Pearl's place for music. And that place was burned 4 times politically, and it was burned down finally a few years later. And the canopy landed on top of the ashes inside with just a bit of color left. And he had a picture of it that he loved. I can't remember exactly what year, but one year I had these tennis shoes made. It must have been the late '70s. They cost $25. They were an enormous expense. Huge. And now they would be also. I wore them with the red shorts, and the jacket used to be much more lavender, but it's faded, like all of us. Of the 18 boxes, I think that I've allocated, so to speak, in the odd place that doesn't seem to really get it, but there are journals from 1976 through 1998. The others will be given upon my death or when my son should decide. This is some of the contents of the box of 67 to about 85. Here's an old map. People say all the boxes have, especially up to about 97, have tremendous amounts of these excessively wasteful, constantly keeping our taxes at work insanity of reports and studies on Venice and the ad nauseum specific plans and the neighborhood plans and the local plans, etc. Up here I have just a few smatterings that show Daryl Golden, Rick Sinatra, Arlene Handler, Martine Vogel, different studios. I have tremendous amounts of arts ephemera, visual arts, media arts, writing arts, poetry, dance, theater, music. There's a, what do you call it, menu from the Come Back In. I also have one from Suzanne's Kitchen. I may have shot those on the other video quickly. There's a stack of ephemera. They've returned this to me because they can't seem to deal with it, and they don't evidently want to, and they haven't taken my suggestions of 7 months on how to deal with it. Here are more reports from that box alone on the city of Los Angeles and the canals. Well, actually, all these relate specifically to the canals and to Venice, but it's the city of Los Angeles paper waste. Here are little old flyers, a few of that are in this box. I did many community flyers, of course, and there's a little one there on another hearing. Oh, that was probably 1970 or something like that. Here are more and more canal reports. This stack here, the maps of all the lots of the entire Canal and Peninsula area. It's the Venice Peninsula. It is not the marina. So this is like 1985 to 86, especially in here, the global nuclear disarmament, Target LA, which I was heavily involved in. I also worked on the Great Peace March, which is under there someplace, I guess. Yes, I worked on that for the year of that. 86. These are just other little things from other years that are leftovers from mostly 80 to 85, 86. And here, of course, we have more of the plans and the drafts and the studies and the statements that get rehashed and that are never actually worth anything. This one is actually with Tom Moran's name on it that I'm shooting right there. That shows things that I worked on, like with G. Ray Hawkins Gallery, off and on for decades from its opening in 1975 with Ansel Adams. That's something on Russell, who is one of the great dancers. All these collections also have in each box, and most boxes have more than that, tremendous amounts of clippings and or entire newspapers. Of course, I gave the collection that I had of the entire Beachheads of 1968 first copy through 1992. And then there was a break for 10 years that basically there were no Beachheads. A poster from the exhibit that I did against all odds with the city of under the city of Los Angeles at our so-called library. We have a great librarian. We don't have a library. We're not supposed to have one. That's the one I did in the opening of the new library, so to speak, of that building in the year 1995. The next one, which is just a copy of, I don't have the original right here, I did in 2000. Both of these had lots of event nights. Over here we have some of the press that the Argonaut, David Asper Johnson and George Drury Smith, kindly gave me, the only PR that I've ever gotten on any show ever, in all the decades of exhibits and exhibitions and festivals that I've done pro bono. These are pro bono shows. That's just an old sign from UCLA. Wooden, notice. Back over here, this is a poster, 1997, from A Christmas Memory. So beautifully, beautifully done. One of the many productions at Pacific Resident Theater. This is just a mock-up of titles, headlines I put with a photo that some photographer from the Times took of me. And I saw in the Times. Lots of things are done such ways with me, but anyway. These are photos by Rick Sinatra, who died in 2001, December, who lived here for some time, and then at Santa Cruz. These are pictures that I happen to have in one sack of moi. This is actually a scan of a print from a print by a friend's child, who is now an adult, of my son and I with the Metaphaser, a wonderful inventive game that Rick designed. Here are a couple of other photos, and of course this one was used for the 7th Canal Festival. I think it was the 7th one that was used for. This is under the POP pier before it burned, or as it burned. This is a photo I had him take. I thought it was apropos. These are photos, these two down here, from Our Virgin Mary, which were used for the play Our Virgin Mary, an original musical in 1974 and 75. We did it. This is from Mother's Day in the Holding Tank. God, what year did I do that with Joanne? Around the same time, 74, 73, 75. These are other photos that Rick took for various different reasons. Britain, the middle three here are taken at the opening in the year 2000 in March for the exhibit that I did at our library for Venice photographers. Charles Britton is one of those photographers. Of course, there's a picture of Frank Talbot that he took there. These two were taken in Charles's backyard. These two are from 1984 by Gary Leonard. They're the only pictures that I have of me ever doing major exhibits for a couple of decades at G. Ray Hawkins Gallery. This is with Scavullo. I rehung his exhibit to the way he liked it. He was happy. Yay. These all these photos here now are by Darrell Golden, who died. Oh God, I can't even remember the year. 96. These were taken in his studio in West Washington. And These were probably taken, oh God, I can't remember. I'm going to say 87. They were not taken after 88, that's for sure. I think it's 87. These others that he took here, boy, these have to be about 1969 to 72. These are probably 69 to 70 in here, these 5, I think. And that one's in the backyard there at our Carroll Canal place long ago. And these two are by Patrick Reynolds. This one's a copy, and this one's a print. Boy, these are probably 1970. New York by Kevin Higgins, taken on a rooftop, the ones of me singly. Very early January 1979. He was like Daryl and Frank and Rick, and a great photographer to work with. I couldn't stay in New York for many reasons, but he also wanted us to pose for a special he was doing for Esquire magazine, The Girls and Me, in New York City. This is a freezing day. It's like 6 below zero. It's just a huge day. It was a painful day, and it's also why modeling is just such an incredibly hard work to do. These three in the center here are hand-colored by him. We're beginning now with some things from Frank Talbot over the decades. This is 79 when I smashed the leg and foot. I'm with my son's roller skates, not mine. These two are also from that time. These are taken in early November 1979. And these four, along with I think a couple of others, are taken in 1978. Yes, in early October, I think it was. In 1976, Frank Talbot kindly took photographs of the girls, David and myself. And he did this again in 1980 and 1985 for us. Aaron and David are 12-ish. Here they are 12. And Anna is 11 in these photos. The next photos are in 1980. I was desperately dying, literally, of massive poison oak, and I was very ill. It was also the night. These shots were taken at the moment that John Lennon was shot in New York. It was a very brave of Frank to continue to shoot at all. These two shots, this one is from, that's 1978, before I got my hair cut. And the one with the shoes is also, I suppose, yes it is. Those were little snapshots. And here are the photographs from 1985, or most of them, I suppose, some of them. David and Aaron are 21, and Anna is almost 20. She is 20. She's going to be in November. This was taken in August. So David is going to turn 21, and Aaron has turned 21. These were taken at Frank's studio on Glencoe, in that from Beach to Maxella area before it's been so developed, and now where they've torn down huge, wonderful actual workspaces and light industry. It's all gone. Of Patrick Reynolds, who made a film called White Noon, and he had me in it. These are little prints that I made from the shoot on that film. These other photos are by him up north in Berkeley and San Francisco. This is 69 or 70. It may be both. No, I think most of these were taken in one day around the city. And then here are a couple of other smaller ones from Venice, and they're the kids in the kitchen, a silhouette shot at 438 Carroll Canal. Today is, it's the 10th of January, 2003. Many festivals and cultural things. Sheila Hahn asked me to help her to form an organization called Jaya, a women's artists collective, which of course had some men in it. She left here for her business in Mendocino County in 74, late 74 or early 75, I think. This is our first flyer from our first event that I produced, and I did the flyers, of course. These two flyers, the two larger ones Aroni did, and the two smaller ones I did. This shows the canal monster that I made that was 22 feet long with the curls in it. And that was for one of the canal festivals, 1973. These are three photos from one is from a poetry reading in 88, fall, and one is from the November, I think, 1988. Those are both from events that I did, for part of the events that I did for the Venice Beachhead 20th anniversary in 1988. Here are Xeroxes of photos also, by Rick Sinatra, when we had our shop at 183 Pier Avenue for Jaya. These, I might have shot these before. These are just from the newspaper clippings. Brian McClellan kindly took photos when we redid the mural. Oh, I have to get the mural right out. I'm going to get it right out. This is a Beachhead article on the mural. I was arrested twice for it, among other things. Here are two articles on the mural when it was painted over and then cleaned up by people from the community. It was painted over by the powers that be, and some of their thugs were hired at one point to do that too. The bottom photo Xerox here is Emily and myself and Judith Foster at the 1975 dedication of the canal mural, Jaya mural, and above is a picture of Mary Lou at the canal funeral in 1976. There's a poster from the San Francisco Mime Troupe, of course, which I was involved with it in different ways, mostly from helping for decades. Here's a poster from 1997 from our Pacific Resident Theater, which is 20 years old, in 2005 when Venice turns 100. This is the Target LA map of places where there are nuclear power sites, weapons, and makings. We held a huge art event and led mock tours of nuclear plants in 1983 out at the Rose Bowl area. In the distance is a more recent poster. This was actually from about 1991, I think. No, maybe 94. When Barbara Avedon died, but she was the co-founder of Another Mother for Peace, which I joined right away. When was it? 66, I think. At any rate, here's an old poster from St. Charles Place, which became known more recently as St. Mark's Place, and which now doesn't exist as either. But it was originally the St. Charles Hotel. The Canal Gators were a great group, and they went back and forth, especially between here and New Orleans. Severance is a very important band, and for those who like the gossip, and there are too many that do, it was a great band, and Gregory Hines also belonged to it here in Venice. But they disbanded. Martine's spouse, Scipio, also played with that band. Here's a Year of the Dragon poster that was made, so that has to be 76. This is a famous photo, although it means very little actually, but some people like it a lot. It's an old poster. Here is the kind of two-scale Xerox that Emily has given me of the canal mural, the Jaya mural at Dell and South Venice Boulevard. This is a copy of her first book, and this shows a drawing of canal festivals. I'm going to try and turn the page here. here's the cover of it. And, oh God, where am I? There. And she and Ed did the book. I think that was, I'm going to say 81. This is an old etching of Gary Chafe's. This is a series of old etchings of the moon by Aroni Premal. Here we have another anti-war kind of thing that, you know, from in honor of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings that the USA did. Not that everybody else wasn't doing their bombings, but commemorations of those sites and times. Here are a couple more flyers that I did for things at the community house at Eastern, over the bridge from Helen Canal Alley. Here is a flyer that I did for the only public hearing on the bike path, and I actually wrote the petition for that, and the, what do you call it, the paragraph, the writing for it, whatever they want to call it, and it got passed. Of course, now it's just another yuppie speedway, but there we are. Okay, here's another copy of the first beachhead, but here are some others that deal in 69 through 73 in the canal issues especially, but the Venice plans in general. The map up here is a 1988 map from one of the many maps in the collection. This is just the biggest one of them, of the Venice area as it's supposed to be known in general, I guess. Articles by Rick Davidson, of course, and here's another page from the beachhead. Here's the 5th annual, and this was our 5th park that was torn down at midnight by the city one year, 73, January, if I recall correctly, after we built it. And then of course that led to what is now known as the Nanny Park, but it was a hand-built park at Linney Canal and Dell at the bridge area. Here's the 4th annual poster of the canal festivals. Here's the 2nd. The 3rd I shot the other day on a piece of tape, on this tape I think. And here's the 7th. Let's see if I can get that. I don't know if I can. And of course the 6th again. Old Rolling Stones. Here are a few of the only last San Francisco posters that I managed to hold on to that people didn't destroy, for one thing, among other things. And we're coming up to the poster also of Daryl's, I think it was 86, I can't be sure, a poster that he did for his fashions. A great artist he was, but he also did fashions. His cousin Kathy, there in the forefront, myself behind the other two, and the 3rd one there is Linda Lux. I have tons and tons and tons of photos and snapshots in books from about 1962 or 58 up to through 93, I think. After that, they're all loose still, as of January 2004. These are photos that I developed, probably at Rick's. This is Barbara Jean Hayes at her house where the Kleinmans now live, except that they've enlarged that compound and have taken over the entire end of the island and the bridge. Not that they have done more than other people, particularly, of the modern times. There's David, that's on Howland Canal facing Grand Canal. Oh boy, what year is this? It has to be 69, I think, ish. There's the kitchen. Here's Pammy and the kids running out to the actually the 2nd park, the one that we called the Robert F. Kennedy Park, on Howland at Grand. These are pictures that show the Eastern Canal, actually very interestingly, looking to the north in the right two, and to the south in the other one, the left two, and the one on the right. These two are under the old Venice Island bridges where the canals go under, and now there are new structures since the so-called renovation of the canals in 92 to 95, plus all the shootings of the ducks and geese, besides the drying up of the canals, and the motors that are constantly used. This is on Doheny, on Sunset. These are old photos of Los Angeles area. And this one I love because it's a homeopathic clinic, of course. This is just a smattering of leftovers of little designs of David's when he was young. These are all done probably between age 3 and 6, except for a couple. But even these color ones were done in those ages. And his study of French here also. The lightning was probably done when he was about 7 to 10, not past 10, that's for sure. This center one here was probably done when he was 9 to 10. And this top one was done when he was 14 and a half years of parenthood by moi, as it says on it. This one is of his uncle from, he must have been 5, maybe 6 at the most. Okay. And he was born in 1964. And this is another photo, a large print by Rick Sinatra. This was probably taken in the 1976 Canal Surfer kind of postcard, poster, winter solstice montage that I made with him in 1976 in December. The water is, I swear, not over 50 degrees.